What's going on, everybody? It's your boy JRich, back for another episode of Across the Pod with my main man Tom. Game week 14 has almost come to a close. We do have the games on Thursday still to be played, so we're hoping for some points from Pedro. But Tom, we had a massive slate of games yesterday. You captained Erling Haaland, I captained Cole Palmer, but we as a unit captained Mo Salah. What on earth are we doing? Why didn't we just go with the collective thinking and captain Salah for his 2-goal, 1-assist performance against our Newcastle boys yesterday? How are you feeling, and how is your team doing so far through this game week?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm pretty fatigued with FPL. I feel like the midweek games have tired me out and we've got to come back on and talk about the weekend. But yeah, I think, the last podcast, if you listened, we said to captain Salah and it worked out. We said captain Saka the week before by getting over 30 points from our captain pick. So at least we're doing something right. But yeah, I think there's a few players which are on my radar this week would be good to talk about, but also keen to hear your thoughts as well. But I think we can keep it short and sweet and keep it snappy. But otherwise, good to see you again, my friend.
Yeah, we're here to preview game week 15, the transfers we want to make, our captain's picks, and of course, the decisions we're going to be making with our team. So Tom, let's start with your watch list because you always do a fantastic job putting together the watch list for the people. So who do you have on your radar heading into game week 15?
I mean, this isn't quite as fancy as, the rest of the FPL YouTubers, but I'm a consultant by trade, so I do like a PowerPoint. I've split it into defenders, mids, forwards. There isn't too many players. I think I've got a total of like 6-7 players, which I think are on my watch list. And that's obviously excluding the likes of Salah, Palmer, Saka. Yep. If you don't have them in your team, just get them in your team. And it's kind of how you balance the rest of your funds around your team, which I think is the main question for everyone at the minute. So defensive wise, I've got these 4. I think Julian Timber with Arsenal's other injuries. And I think he's kind of locked down the right back spot. Even if Ben White's fit, I think Timber would start ahead of him. And I think there's more value in Timber than the likes of Gabriel and Saliba, who are like creeping up in price.
Okay.
Probably longer term, I still think Gabriel and Raya are better options. But I do like him as, if you already have a Gabriel or Raya, as another spot. Because I think Arsenal are the only team in the league that are going to keep a clean sheet, let's be real. Their fixtures are pretty good run. And even in hard fixtures against United, still keeping a clean sheet. So I just think Arsenal defense, if you're targeting clean sheets, it's probably the only one I would look at. And I like Timber for his, we talked about it last week, for his ability to get in goal scoring positions, assists, potential, and comes away with the goal and a clean sheet. So I just think Arsenal are probably more likely to not than to keep a clean sheet in a game at the minute. And I just think that's really good for like the basis of your team, especially if you have the funds for it. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. Last night, in the last podcast, I said Trent, and you laughed me off.
I did.
But he came in and only played like 20 minutes, got 2 assists. I think with Bradley injured as well until the new year, Trent probably going to be starting again from next week, coming back from an injury. He just looked kind of electric on that right wing, right back, right wing position. I do think Liverpool looked a little bit more shaky than usual against Newcastle. And absolutely. I think, teams are going to be looking at that and going like, okay, they're not the colossal team that everyone thinks they are and absolutely unbeatable. And I don't think their defense is anywhere near as good as Arsenal's, for instance, especially with Konate being out. But I'm keen to hear your thoughts on Trent. Has anything changed from the last podcast when I brought him up?
I mean, a little bit for sure. To see him put those 2 assists up in those 20 minutes was surprising. But no, it comes down to me is, as much as I do agree with you that Trent has a massive upside, for me, the problem is balancing the price tag that comes with him versus, you brought up a Timber, a Gabriel, a Saliba. Yep. And when you have set piece merchants, they get 10 corners a game, and all these guys are making an impact because they're involved in goals. On every other team, the defenders don't have as many opportunities as Arsenal does. And on top of the fact that they're converting, we saw Timber score in the game against the game against Man United. So even just that aspect alone makes me want to kind of just lean on the Arsenal assets. You get a bit of the savings, the clean sheet potential. You're not going to get the assist or potential goal upside from Trent, but part of me is still slightly leaning on the Arsenal assets at defense, kind of just getting those savings so I can spread it around in the midfield and in the forward positions. But I'm with you, though. If you want to make that decision to have Trent in your team, maybe you have to go a little bit cheaper in the midfield or in the forward position, but it probably will pay off for you, and I do like having him in the team for sure.
Okay, nice. Well, I'll take that. The other two, Cucurella, we spoke a lot in the last podcast. I do think that Chelsea defense is probably one of the only ones I'd be targeting, and it is mainly for their fixture run. I think it's such a
Yep.
good run in the next 6 or 7. We did have this discussion last time around, is it better just to have a Colwill or Sanchez in goal? And it is potentially. I just like the upside of having Cucurella at that price point if you can afford him. He's already gone
Yeah.
up in price. And the last one, I think we did speak about last week, but I also brought him into one of my teams, was Matty Cash, and he came in
Mhm.
and scored, and almost got a clean sheet, but didn't. But I still think at 4.4 million, and I think he's more nailed when he's fit. Obviously, he does have a lot of injury issues, but
Yeah.
historically, FPL been a really good asset, and I think he's got that right back slot nailed more than Digne technically does the left back slot, because when Cash is injured, they're kind of playing Consa there, they're playing
Yep.
Bagade and whoever else they can find from the stands just to go play on the pitch, because they just don't have a strong right back other than Matty Cash. So I think Matty Cash will continue to play. I think Villa's fixture run is really, really good. I think Southampton at home next. They got some Bournemouth at home maybe. Oh no, Forest
Southampton,
away. Then they've got
Forest.
City. So two pretty good fixtures, two tough ones, and then the next was that 7 look pretty good, other than Arsenal
Yeah.
away.
It's a
So
little mixed, I'd say, for defense,
yeah,
especially because you're facing, Brighton at home. They may keep a clean sheet in that one. Leicester, they probably can, but do you really trust them to? And then do you want to have them for that City game where City finally put on a ton of goals and maybe is in better form, especially at home? But again, I think the question for me isn't so much whether you like him at the price point or whether you like him for the fixture run, because I think a lot of defenders in this 4-4 range do have a tough fixture run. But I want to ask you about Lewis Hall, because Lewis Hall is a player that his fixtures are turning for him and he's expected to rise potentially even into this week. But would you prefer a Lewis Hall at his price, knowing that, they've been a little shaky in the defense? He isn't contributing kind of how we hoped, but he's going to be
yeah.
a similar price range right now with maybe a slightly better fixture run going forward.
I think if it was between me and between Hall and Cash, I'd go for Cash. I think
Okay.
he's way more direct. Historically in FPL, I mean, I owned him last season when he scored a hat trick for Aston Villa, and that's ridiculous for a
That's
right back, right?
ridiculous.
Which is absolutely crazy. And I think if he stays fit, I think if Villa are playing, he has such a direct run into the box, late runs into the box, has ability to assist, score. Lewis Hall
Yeah.
isn't quite getting into those positions for us at the minute.
Yeah.
And I think Hall is still another good option for the price point of 4.3 and Cash for 4.4, especially given that the likes of Trent is 7 million. You're basically getting two
Yeah.
players almost for like the same amount. So I do get the point on Trent. But for me, I'd probably go Cash over Hall. Newcastle just fail to keep a clean sheet at the minute. They make silly
Yeah.
mistakes. And I think a lot of that is actually coming through Lewis Hall. So I think
Yep.
long
We talked
term
about it.
in the fixtures that are against the Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, I could see Eddie Howe going back to a Dan Burn at left back kind of vibe, bring Lloyd Kelly at left back again, and save Lewis Hall for the more attacking games. So definitely want to consider. I'd pick Cash over Hall.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to bring it up because I think it's another decision that we have to make at some point. He's a player that we like the attacking threat, but we also talked about how Salah would probably abuse him defensively, and that's exactly what we saw yesterday. So how do you feel about your midfields that you're targeting for this week, though?
So 3 midfielders to look at this week.
Ooh.
I think Bowen we spoke about a lot last week, so I don't want to spend too much on him. I think he had expected goal involvement over 1
It was
in the fixture.
1.6, I believe, in that game,
Well,
and
yeah,
he
that's
came
absolutely
away
crazy.
with nothing.
I feel really bad for Bowen owners because I really want to bring him in, just didn't have the minerals to do it. I do think his next fixture, are they playing Wolves, who shipped 8 goals in 2 games? They're playing Wolves on Monday night. I'd be
Yes.
semi-tempted as a differential captain choice for Bowen this week. Wolves at home, Bournemouth away, Brighton at home, Southampton. 2 tough fixtures and then 2 other great fixtures. So I think over the next 4, the reason I'm not I don't know whether to bring him in or not is one of the good fixtures already gone. Now it's kind of like 4 good fixtures, 2
Yeah.
tough fixtures. West Ham don't look great, but he is their talisman and should have got more. So he's on penalties as well, which I like. So
Yep.
the reason I put Bowen and Gordon in together in this is it's a toss-up between them, and I'm more keen to get your thoughts on if you had a choice between Bowen with this fixture run and Gordon with the Newcastle's fixture run at a similar price point, which one would you pick?
Man, that's really tough. Gordon's just been such a disappointment for me. But he looked great this game. Like against Liverpool, he was great. He had an assist against Palace as well. It's just, I don't feel like he's in the right form quite yet. But at the price, it's not bad. I think it's not so much whether it's Bowen or Gordon. It's that I know that in my heart, Tom, I really want Rashi at 7 mil. Now that the Arsenal game is over, I really want to bring in Rashi at 7 mil. He didn't start yesterday, which means he probably will over the weekend. And the fixture run is much better. They got Forest this week. I think I would probably go Gordon, though. I like Bowen, but I do think having Isak up top, you kind of saw the way they feed off of each other in the game. And I think Isak's playing much better. So having that, knowing that they're probably going to have to score more goals to potentially win games, I like Bowen. I think, the penalty aspect does make a lot of sense. And Kudos being back is a big lift for them as well, offensively. Yeah. And the two of them work off together really well. But part of me would probably take the savings and go Gordon if I was choosing between the two, but I still think I kind of like Rashi a little bit more overall, though.
Yeah, the thing is, I would have thought Rashi would have that spot locked down, given like he scored 2 and we spoke about him being a streaky player. If I was on wildcard, I would have totally brought him in. Yeah. And I do think if you're being reactionary, don't take him out this week if you've already got him. I think Forest at home, he'll play. I think he'll do well. I can see him and Bruno both getting returns, and I think he'll go back to that system with Bruno as one of the front three, probably Rashford and then Garnacho or someone else play, and maybe Ahmad on the other side. Although
Ahmad didn't start too, right? And that seemed like a big issue for them. Like he's been so good, and then when he didn't start, they were clearly missing that. Once he came back on, it was a little bit better. But yeah, hopefully he starts Rashi up top, and then Bruno in a more advanced position would help them for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I think long-term United assets, I'm slightly worried about the rotation. I've got Bruno in my team, but he plays centre mid. I'm hoping that's just against Arsenal and he's going to play back in that 10. But I think definitely one to monitor. I wouldn't bring in Man United assets if you don't already have them. And if you do, maybe hold them and see how they play. The last one I want to talk to you about is it time to start having a conversation about De Bruyne? He's finally back from injury. He started goal and an assist. So, 11, was it 14 points he got? 11? Yeah, I think 14 points. Yeah, from 75 minutes.
14 points.
City, look at the last results and how much he's played. And then the second he starts playing again, look at that 3-0 victory.
Yep.
It's crazy. And I think Palace, I was at the Palace-Newcastle game last week and Palace looked awful.
Yep.
They got Palace next. They got some good fixtures. I don't really know why people wouldn't be considering De Bruyne at this point being so prolific. And I think if people don't have Haaland, De Bruyne's going to be assisting left, right, and centre. So I don't know. I quite like him. I'm a bit tentative over De Bruyne as I am every other time because I think it's going to really struggle to get Saka, Palmer, Salah, and De Bruyne in the team.
And De Bruyne,
And I think the other three are better. But I do like him as a differential pick. And I think if you can time like De Bruyne's games that he does really well and you can captain him differentially, you can really go up the ranks. So want to discuss or just think about generally, I think, De Bruyne.
Yeah, he's tough for me because if I have De Bruyne, I almost feel like I have to have Haaland in my team as well. And then when you talk about having Haaland and De Bruyne, then you're basically not going to have one of probably Salah, Saka, Palmer because there's no way you can make it work from a funds perspective. And so if you are still holding on to Erling Haaland, and you are one of those people, Tom, is this a move you consider making? You have Bruno in your team. Maybe you don't. The problem is that Palmer, Saka, and even Salah, who's definitely not coming out of the team, they all have great fixture runs. So what is it to you that you think, outside of being a differential, it seems like you're kind of just trying to be different in some respects? Because I think from your own personal rankings, you would have Salah, you'd have Saka, you'd have Palmer over all of them. It's over De Bruyne especially. And at 9.4, unless you're really trying to double up on the points with Haaland and De Bruyne, I don't really see it. And the way Haaland's playing right now, imagine them scoring 3 goals and he only can muster an assist. De Bruyne is the one that gets the goal and the assist. It's really surprised me how badly Haaland's been playing. And hopefully De Bruyne can make it better. But I think the issue really for me is he going to be scoring goals consistently enough, or is the assist going to be enough to justify that 9.4 price tag? Because all these guys that are, in the 9 mil range, 9.5 or above, a Son, a Saka, they have goal scoring threat on top of getting assists. And De Bruyne doesn't have that as much, but he probably will get you some bonus points, which I think is definitely fair.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I do think he's one to monitor. I just think if the next 2-3 fixtures, I could see him getting a goal and assist in each of those, and then it's the conversation where everyone's having, oh, De Bruyne is undroppable. You need him in your fantasy, and everyone's struggling to getting him in. You kind of want to get ahead of the curve before people do, because then it's just more beneficial to you as a team. But I do kind of agree. I'm not looking to ruin my team and chop it up just to get De Bruyne in, but I do think it is an interesting one to chat about.
So I did want to ask you then, if you were to pick a player, Saka, Salah, Palmer, who is the one you would drop to bring in Kevin De Bruyne? Because I feel like that's the decision you're probably going to have to make.
Yeah, I just don't think you're dropping any of them for Kevin De Bruyne. Yeah. I think if you, because I mean, I've got those three and Haaland in my team, so I could drop Haaland down to De Bruyne and spread the funds, which I think is more reasonable. And do you think De Bruyne can cover Haaland? Probably. I mean, it showed it in that game. It's just a question of, is De Bruyne going to stay fit? Is he going to play only 70 minutes every game? Yeah, I don't know. I do think Saka, Salah, Palmer are all on penalties and all playing pretty much 90 minutes in better teams that are playing better football at this present time. So I think De Bruyne's probably one to watch. And maybe if one of those gets injured or they're looking and, their fixtures turn or they're not playing as well, maybe it's a good pivot point to save some money and spread elsewhere.
Yeah, and then the only thing I wanted to bring up as well is the Bruno aspect of it all, right? Like, we're liking some of the ways that Bruno is playing. He's getting a lot of assists. He's kind of in a similar spot as De Bruyne. De Bruyne obviously much better player on a better team, but you do also have the penalty aspect and the 1 mil savings of Bruno Fernandes. And while he may not be in all of my teams, I think even I may put him over De Bruyne potentially just because he's a little bit cheaper and he will give you penalties and set pieces that De Bruyne's not always going to give you in certain situations.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout. And I think the only other two players I wanted to flag, I mean, it's pretty simple for forwards this week. I don't think there's many that are on everyone's radar right now. Haaland's playing pretty poorly. Cunha's playing pretty poorly. Pedro doesn't even excite me anymore, even though we all brought him in a rush. Like, I'm not even excited to watch the Fulham game. Who else is up there? Chris Wood, I don't even want to mention him. Anyone else? I don't really know. In terms of forwards, it's basically Jackson, Watkins, Isaac. Jackson, I've not included for obvious reasons. Like he was
the most transferred player in.
Yeah, I think Jackson will continue to be a good asset going forward, and I don't see him losing his spot. But there is questions over like Felix and Nkunku and more rotation with that squad. So I think the two that everyone's looking at, and I hope everyone listened when we said last week, Isaac, to don't sell him because I think he'll play against Liverpool and do well. Watkins as well. I think we flagged it last week. Is a lot of people transferring him out, and it was just before the run of like really, really good fixtures. So it's like they've got another good home fixture now. It does get a little bit tougher, as we mentioned before, with Matty Cash, but I just think Watkins can show what he can do. And he's on penalties again. So that's just like such an extra bonus for him. I do think at 9 million, he's quite expensive. I'd probably pick Isaac over Watkins. But I think if there's a way where you can get them both, not really a bad option. There's literally no other strikers which excite me at the minute down the right-hand side there. None. I think the only two that I would want in my team are the top two.
Yeah, so these are the ones that have been most transferred in this week. Watkins, Isak, obviously. Hilarious to have Isak see the price fall just to probably go up this week, only because everyone will be bringing him back in. Jackson didn't play this week, but still, for the fixtures, they're going to transfer him in. He's been playing great. Cunha's the one that I think we need to have the conversation about because I'm just about ready to transfer him out and maybe go up to a Jackson or even potentially a Watkins if we can make the funds work. I know that you are kind of iffy on bringing in Watkins for the transfer, but definitely it's a decision we could make. I know you're not all in on Jackson, especially after missing that fixture against Southampton where they scored 5 goals, but I'm kind of with you. There's not really anybody else that I see potentially as an option. Evan Nielsen's another one who's rising and may see a price rise today. We'll see how he plays, but another one who could be a good option. He's been playing very, very well lately. His price has been going up only at 6 mil, could go up to 6.1, but again, I'm not really there with Bournemouth. They're scoring a ton of goals and expected to score a ton of goals with Semenyo coming back as well. Another big piece to their offense. But I'm with you on the forwards. It maybe be a Watkins. I told our friend Alex to bring him in last week, so that worked out for him with a goal and an assist. Morgan Rogers obviously scored as well, which was great. But as the team stands right now, Tom, I think we have two problems. We could discuss Ait-Nouri, who has scored 0 points the last 2 game weeks, which is tough because Wolves keep conceding goals. Cunha, another one who's been disappointing the last few weeks. And then how do we feel about Bruno Fernandes? We brought him up versus Kevin De Bruyne and a few other assets. We've talked about a lot of midfielders in the cheaper 6 mil. I talked about Enzo Fernandez, who got another assist this week. We talked about Ahmad, who's great down that right side for Man United, and whether Bruno is worth it at 8.4. But is there any transfers you're looking at right now and you see, yeah, we could probably make that move and be okay heading into game week 15?
It's tough, isn't it? Looking at the team, it doesn't really excite me that much. Aït-Nouri, I think we could get rid of. He's not quite performing. There's a lot of money tied up in him. You could pivot him down to like a Matty Cash or someone else. Probably not Cash, soon where you got Digne. I do think Cunha is probably, like, they've got 3 more good fixtures, like you said, but I'm not super excited by him. We can totally remove him if you want. And I do think out of Jackson and Watkins, I'd probably rather Watkins, but I don't know which one you'd prefer. And then it's a question of where do you make the funds up? Are we going to drop Semenyo as well and just pivot down to someone like a Harry Winks just to get the funds, or what are we doing?
Yeah, so the only thing with Semenyo is whether we start him or not. This fixture run is very good. Like Ipswich away, West Ham, United, Palace, Fulham, Everton. If we can make the funds work, I do think having him, whether it's as a starter or a bench piece, will work quite well. When I look at the team, you brought up Aït-Nouri. I think we could keep him unless we do really want to roll that transfer. But the 2 guys I look to is Bruno Fernandes and Cunha as the 2 ones we could swap, because then we could bring in a Watkins and then we still have 6.3 to work in the midfield. Or if we wanted to go the other direction, go a little bit cheaper up top, which I don't think we would do. With Jackson, we can, at that point, bring in Rashford, which, again, I don't think it's a move we have to make, but this team, to me, looks a lot stronger than it did before we walked into this exercise. But we can't get Rashford if we have Watkins. So what are your thoughts on a move like that, or pivoting in this fashion? We could move Aït-Nouri as well, pivot him down, maybe move some more funds around. Potentially even could go to a Bowen if you did get cheap enough, right? Because we could go from 4.8 all the way down to like 4.4, 4.5. We still have 0.1 left. We could take Rashford and go all the way up to Bowen if you did want to do that. Yeah,
the only thing I'm thinking here is we just get rid of Aït-Nouri to like the cheapest defender possible, and every week we play Digne, Colwill, Hall with Raya, and we bring Bowen in and Watkins.
Ooh,
I don't know if that would make enough for us.
That is okay. Hold on 1 second. Let's see what we can cook up here. Man, we're bringing in Bowen after the blank. This guy is just stones of steel. Holy. Okay.
It's the best time to get
So we
him.
got that. We have to make up 1.1. That's probably too much, right? There wouldn't be a 3.8 defender. There's no way.
No.
Not
we need
that
3.7
cheap.
anyway. I think the cheapest one's probably a 3.9 still.
Yeah. So 3.9 still the cheapest defender. So it wouldn't quite work.
You'd need to drop Semenyo as well, at which point it's probably not. Or you could just drop Semenyo down now and we just play Pedro every week.
We could. Because would you rather drop Pedro to a 4? Because there a 4? Can we get a 4-5 forward? Or is it 5?
No, you can get rid of João Pedro.
If we wanted to make that move, I love how we're making the move before he plays. So when he blanks, or when he scores 3 goals, because we could do that if you wanted to do that. Keep Semenyo, play him, play Bowen, Watkins.
I do then think when we've got like a really good balanced team with like Semenyo is probably Bournemouth's best player, West Ham, Bowen's their best player. Then we've got the 3 that we don't need to speak about, and probably the 2 best strikers in the league other than Haaland. Yeah. I quite like that personally, but at the same time, maybe we see how João Pedro does this week, tonight, and then pull the trigger on it. But I do think we've got the right options. I think we're looking in the right places. I think getting Watkins in, Bowen. I do still like Rashford as well, so I'm not against Rashford. And I think that's something we're just gonna have to sit and have a think about.
Yeah, I think the only thing for me is we do have the 4 transfers, which is great, and I don't know if this is the week where it feels like burning 3 of them makes a lot of sense. That's my only thing here is.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
If we were just to roll with the team as it's presently constructed, it's still a pretty good team. Like we can go through and pick the team right now. we don't have to play 8 Nuri, but we probably will. We're probably going to play Semenyo if I feel like that would be. Would you rather play Semenyo or Joao Pedro as it stands right now? Obviously, Pedro hasn't played, Semenyo hasn't played, but I feel like we'd probably just play Semenyo against Ipswich in this instance.
That's a tough one. I think that's literally 50-50 for me. I'd probably just go Pedro, but I don't know. Given Brighton, but Bournemouth scoring a lot of goals. Mate, it's literally 50-50 for me. I'd let you pick. I picked on all the decision making last few weeks. I'll let you pick that one.
So we will wait to see, but my gut instinct is saying Semenyo. I think that the way that Bournemouth is playing right now, I would probably make that switch. It doesn't really matter. We can make the switch later, but this is probably what I would be looking at. And I think we just roll with Salah at captain. There's potential still to, I think, make that switch with Rashford and Cunha. But
we've done well saving up 4 transfers. Why are we wasting them on mediocre players? Let's just get another game week of information. Then we got 5 big ones.
Yeah. And so for me, it's like we're burning a transfer to bring nothing into our team just to try and get a bigger guy up top. But we've actually been pretty successful so far with the strikers. You had a great call on Isak last week. Bruno is still, kind of a wait and see for me. He's not in my personal team, but I think we could make that move if we wanted to. But at least that move is only a 2 transfer move versus a 3 transfer move. And if we kept him, I don't hate it at all to kind of keep Cunha, even though I don't love it, but Bruno as well. It's really just whether we want to go all the way up to Bowen in that situation. I think if we wanted to do 2, we could. But I think this team, as presently constructed, is still a good team. Colwill is going to play after he got some time off on Wednesday. 8 Nuri, he's been pretty bad so far with how many goals they've conceded, but it's always a chance to turn it around. But the way we expect West Ham to play with Kudus and Bowen, maybe they probably still concede. And then Digne is the one that I think is probably the most surprising. Hopefully they can have a good result. They gave up a pretty rough goal to Brentford, but otherwise they did play quite well. So how do you feel about this team? Salah captain, just because how can we not at this point? Might as well keep the good train rolling. We do have Saka at Fulham. We do have Palmer at Tottenham. If we wanted to get really different, maybe we go Isak with the way that he's playing. Brentford does play a little bit better at home. And then the crazy outcome of maybe captaining Semenyo, I don't think we make a move like that. I think we stick with Mo Salah for now.
I think it just makes sense to go Mo Salah. I think they tend to turn up against Everton. I think Everton will put in like a good fight, and you can see them I think Liverpool coming out the back of a draw with Newcastle and Everton.
Wanting a big result,
wanting big results, winning 4-0. They're going to feel more confident going into that game. They're going to want to upset Liverpool's title run. I can see Everton sitting back and defending quite strongly. So I don't think Salah's going to have as good a week as what I expected against Newcastle, but I just don't see another standout, captain this week. I think Saka, Fulham away, might have more purchase. Palmer, again, I don't know. But even Bruno at Forest, if he's going to play in that 10, I think Bruno is probably the best captain shout other than Salah. But again, we don't really know with the rotation. So it just makes sense. Why would you back it? I mean, look at his
the record is ridiculous.
Why would you back against this right now? It's crazy.
Double digits, 4 straight weeks, 6 of the last 7. There's just no point.
More double digits than not? That's crazy in FPL. Yeah. So I just think, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't. I'm semi-tempted just to double down in my own team and go Haaland again, just because I'm feeling really sad and salty about it that I just want to do it again and feel the pain for another game week. So when you're watching City blank again or Haaland blank again, just have a think of me.
I'll always be thinking about you boys who still have Haaland in the team, and thankfully for me and for the pod listeners, I do not. But I'm with you. I think Salah's the correct choice. We will update the people on any transfers that we make should we decide to make them. We kind of walked through doing the Rashford to Jackson or even Watkins transfer, which I really like that one personally. You were kind of so-so on it, but I think just saving some of these transfers for what could be a big fixture swing. At some point, we'll have to take Cunha and 8 Nuri out of the team because they have a really bad fixture swing. But I think outside of that, the team looks really solid. It's playing well. I believe we're on 69 points heading into Thursday's last 2 games. So we're in really good shape. Tom, do you have any final thoughts for the people before we get out of here?
No, I think it's a good week. I'm looking forward to this game week as much as I'm hating FPL at the minute. I think it's nice to just tick through a midweek fixture, get into the next one. Let's see how it goes. Probably we'll say the same things that we said last week, like Salah's going to captain again, do well, take Haaland out your team, blah, blah, blah. But I'm hoping for a captain Haaland hat-trick against Palace. Let's see. I'm willing it into existence.
I mean, he can't do any worse than he did this week because this was the week that he probably should have done a little bit better, but it just didn't happen for him. So I'm hoping for you because at some point we know that it's going to turn around. It's just When's that going to happen for Haaland? It kind of happened for everyone else all at once, just not for the big man, unfortunately. But thank you to everybody for tuning into this week. Good luck with game week 15. Hopefully your transfers are more successful than the Mbumo to Bowen transfer from this week. I still like Bowen going forward. Tom mentioned him as well. Good luck with your captain selections. Just pick Salah. Don't overcomplicate it. And we'll see you guys next week. We're out. Peace.